I don't want to stop the song or turn it down. It's so good. That's Rainbow Haze. No artist credited. But man, it's such a good song. Anyway, hello, and welcome to another One Lion of Code. I am One Lion, and today is Friday. Fridays on this channel mean Community Day. Community Day. So we went through this. Anyway, we'll fix that today. The bot. Oh, the bot. Why do we need bots in streams? We could just do everything manually. Just copy and paste all the messages. Like I had been doing in TBD's stream for a while, but then I've been so busy in the mornings. Thank you, Dukasoft, for your bot actually working. We get 2 dad jokes for the price of none to start off our stream. First of all, Dukasoft came in with a candy's butt. Then TBD Gamer greeted Dukasoft, who greeted him back. And TBD Gamer greeted me, so hello back, TBD Gamer. I think Automated Realms does need a holiday. I'm sure you'll get a response. It'll just take a minute. So I'll show you what I've been working on. I'm always here to help, but I don't need a holiday. Yeah, you do. I'm designed to assist and support. And then you go on to say what TBD Gamer responds to you as. And what is your favorite holiday? Goodness, so presumptuous. Anyway, I greet you all with light and love. I hope you're having a fantastic day. Fridays are usually pretty exciting days for a lot of people, where they get to be excited for the weekend, be excited for the end of the work week, if that's even a thing for you. So I hope it is going extremely well. I'm not going to put a background color on this. I just want this. Okay, I'm going to show you what I'm doing real quick with the bot, but absolutely feel free to start chat immediately on any of the topics that you are interested in conversing about today. I did kind of get the feeling that there was still interest in conversing more about the AI topic. That is open for discussion. I don't want to force it, but I am happy to continue discussing that. I love hearing your thoughts on this topic. I want many more people to get the wide array spectrum of opinions on the use of AI, so that individuals can make informed, knowledgeable decisions about whether they are going to even think about using AI, if they are completely comfortable with it. But again, to me, that's on an individual basis. If you do have a case to make regarding a strong opinion about it, then you're invited to give your case, but please do not push people or get angry at people. If you don't think that you'll be able to converse in a level-headed way about this topic, then I would request that you just consider not contributing to the conversation. Otherwise, if you do have a strong opinion, but you're able to remain level-headed, knowing that it is yours, and there are people that agree with you, but there are also going to be people that disagree with you, that may voice their disagreeing opinion, which is what we're inviting here. So healthy discussion in a respectful manner, where your opinions are valid, they matter, they aren't wrong. I just want to hear it. I want to hear it all. Okay, so what I have been doing in the meantime is just updating the bot a smidge. I'm trying to figure out why Restream Chat sometimes worked with the approach that TBD Gamer and I eventually figured out was a consistent way of getting Restream Chat to cooperate. But now it just hasn't worked at all for me. So we're chatting and I am not seeing the chats echo to YouTube's And that's really annoying. So here's a chat from YouTube. Konnichiwa. And we are not going to see that echo on Twitch. But the thing is that I am seeing Twitch chat show up in Restream chat directly. It's just not doing the relay chat. Or even acting like YouTube is connected to it. That's probably what it is. Even though I started everything in the same order that we already saw worked. Weirdness. Super weirdness. So what I did is in my debug version, I added the embedded chat so that I could see it in goodness, man, lots of ums, so that I could see it in my bot, just to know that Restream chat is at least receiving some messages. And again, we only see messages coming in from Twitch, but of course the sizing of it is not good. I put it in an iframe, and I just want to make this resizable. I'll set it to a hopefully good size for myself, but I just want it to be resizable as well. So to make a resizable div, I asked Claude to make a resizable div like 5 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago now, I guess. And Claude gave me this CSS. And all that I should have to do is slap this in a class on here. And the div itself is resizable. Good. Now I would like my iframe on this page. And since this is just going to be for index only, I'm going to create an index.razor.sass file. Tell that to compile. And we'll target every iframe and make it width 100, height 100. If we look back here, that should... Well, that's weird. Oh, interesting. The background, however, is still going to just be there only for received chats. And hello, Donna. I hope you're having a great Friday. So whatever width this is, I guess I want to see the width of the element so that we can use that as our starting width. Oh, wow. Interesting. So even though we didn't add any JavaScript or anything, when you use a resizable div, it updates the style itself. Wow, that's cool. Okay, so dot resizable. How do we spell resizable? Resizable is going to be a width, min width. No, we'll just do width because I think it's going to get overwritten of, let's say, about 300 pics. Okay, Donna is asking, I hope you have one too. I will have 3, 4 on top of that as well. Dukesoft says, happy Friday. But yeah, again, we don't have to talk about AI. If you do have other conversation pieces that you do want to bring up, please feel free to. If no one does bring anything up in a little bit, then I will start a dialogue about today's AI-related topic conversation, things that we started talking about yesterday that we didn't fully address. I do have opinions on them, but again, I don't want this to be me preaching from the pulpit saying AI this, AI that, you should think of it this way. I want it to be a discussion. I want it to be a conversation. I want to know what you think, if we do talk about it at all today. Otherwise, we can talk about things like, does anyone know what's going on with .NET 10 Preview? I haven't been keeping up with it. There are just way too many changes. How do you feel about the pacing of the changes in our .NET ecosystem, or whatever whatever tools you use? Have you been doing anything interesting with your own projects lately? Okay. So that should have initialized the page with um, a width of 300, and that will get overwritten, it looks like, when you manually resize. So that's cool. That's really cool to see. All right. TBD Gamer is in the chat room waiting, and I need to find where Discord is. There you are. All right. So I'm pulling you in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0 with some delay. And welcome in TBD. You can see his name. Oh, no, you can't.
Hello.
You can see his name up there. Oh, your mic sounds really, really good.
Surprising.
All right. So, hello. Welcome in. Happy
Hello.
whatever day
I
it
figured
is.
I would join you for a bit before meetings.
Cool. 445 looks good to me. Okay, so what is going on, TVD? First of all, great stream this morning. Fantastic times.
Thank you. Made some good progress with developers stream today. That was fun. I will continue my Blazor
journey. Are you gonna let me do this on Unity ROMs? Yes.
Yeah, on the AI topic, we've kind of been skirting around that for months. Like I think we keep visiting it and then not really discussing.
Yeah.
I think.
Oops.
I am overwhelmed by all the options of AI and what does it do? How do we use it? You know, everyone wants to use it.
Not everyone.
From product teams.
Not everyone.
Okay. But,
I know what you mean, though. Your business owners, your product owners.
Yeah. It's. I think from a product perspective, finding the right use case and the right implementation is important. And the problem I have is that people seem to forget that it can be as much wrong as it is correct on stuff. Like, especially from a coding perspective, I really am scared about the laziness. I've already seen examples day to day of developers using AI, and it shows. And that scares me because no one's checking it.
Yeah, I want to discuss that further with you. Let me just finish responding to Dana real quick.
Yep.
And that is part of my workday. Fridays, I middle tag that time on at the end after the stream. Okay, so that is something that I hear often, which is there's this kind of I kind of want to call it a fear, but it's also just it sounds more like frustration to me around AI being misused by junior developers, especially, or someone new to software development, because they don't know what to look for when they're talking with AI to write code. And what they're going to get back are lies, are invalid approaches to things. Is this lining up with what your feelings are currently? What you just.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. My question is almost always in the philosophical realm. What does that really do to our industry, to the customers that are not your customers, but are being served by people who are using AI in this way? Because essentially it's like asking what is the root behind the frustration or fear of that sense?
My general concern is like using AI to put the chunks of code together, right? You're just asking it questions, it's giving you things, and okay, it might be carrying some context, it might have some patterns or practices in there, but code is more than just a line that executes something, right? A code base that you work in that you maintain every day is more than um, I don't know the correct way to say it, but it's the sum of its parts. And if those parts are being put in there based upon people's using AI to do it, then those parts are going to feel more disconnected with every passing change, and inconsistent. And I've raised it a lot, right? I've always
Yeah,
talked
yeah,
about this on stream.
absolutely.
Consistency. Yeah, like DC Aggie says, architecture doesn't just happen. It does take intent. It does take purpose. And if we're using AI, you've got to know the right questions. And one developer may understand the right question, the next developer may not. So the code base is not evolving in the right way. I've seen too many code bases where the code has evolved through there's one of those liquids that you can make a solution and you pour it and it kind of semi sets and it stacks on top of each other, but once it gets to a certain height it kind of collapses under its own weight,
Oh, okay.
right? That's kind of like it's like that solution where it's stable enough to kind of stack on top and it'll work. It will give you a platform to eventually, but
Unless
eventually that
until.
becomes unstable and falls apart. And that's my
Yeah,
concern.
and it is pretty
Like,
invariable that does happen if you keep going.
because a lot of developers are scared to change what's there. They'll add on top of what. So they might copy the code from the existing code base and say, please tell me how to add this feature. And the AI might do it and it might do it well. But I think you're gambling on it if you're not paying attention to what it's actually doing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I'm worried about
I say
that.
absolutely, but what I mean is I'm agreeing with you with my opinion as well.
Yeah. I suppose I'm worried, having spent, over 25 years working with other developers and seeing laziness for that amount of time, right? We haven't stopped being lazy or looking for the quick solution, and it's those developers that are not paying attention to what it's actually doing that scare me the most. And they're not just inexperienced developers. It can be experienced developers too. And then code reviews become ever more important. But if the code is all over the place, what happens then?
Yeah. So on top of that, how do you think that changes based on the environments that you've been in before with inexperienced developers looking something up on the internet saying, hey, that's the thing, copy pasta? How does AI change this landscape when it's already happening?
I think it accelerates it a little bit.
Okay.
Like it's the same problem. Like if I go back, right, I'm not a perfect person. I've looked at Stack Overflow. I've copied the question and the answer, right? But I've been looking for something deliberately, and I've tried to find an answer that fits and understood the solution and taken that time. AI can give me a lot more in a lot less time. Now it does work really well. Like if you start to refine your searching, if you start to understand the differences, like I always use .NET as an example, because a lot of the problem with finding content on .NET after 20, 25 years is that .NET 1 and .NET 9 are worlds apart in what they can do, in how they do it. The framework itself has evolved so much in that time, but it's still C#, it's still .NET. So if you go looking for .NET stuff, you've got to filter through 25 years of differences and changes, and that takes experience. AI does tend to stick close to the newer stuff, right? So it's filtering out a lot of the older stuff, at least validating stuff based upon newer examples appearing, and it must be weighting it in some way. That being said, it's still many months behind. So if you're working in new technology, AI is not ideal unless you have newer models that you have access to, very new models. I'm using AWS right this second, right? I'm looking at AWS Systems Manager, to understand, can I do this for app config? How does this work? How does configuration work if I'm storing it that way? It's something I've not done before. And it doesn't know about app config because it's a relatively new piece, the relatively new library in terms of .NET. Like, it's several of the AWS SDK libraries that I'm using have literally been worked on in the past week, adding features in that I need. So AI has no clue about that.
Ooh. Wasn't this the thing that you were... Sorry, Scott posted a thing. Wasn't this one of the things you were excited for? Making extension methods?
Extension types, yes. So the extension methods have been around for several years, but now the concept of extension types.
That's cool. So I didn't mean to interrupt you with that. DC Aggie is responding saying there are plenty of experienced developers excited by AI and they are best equipped to be skeptical of responses and pushback reprompt. But it sure seems to me that the people most excited by AI and most sure it's ready to go are managers and junior developers. Interesting you should say that. So I guess I'm going to count myself as a junior developer because I don't count myself as a manager. Just to tell you where I'm at in that. But I want to know, based on this, TBD specifically, since you happen to be on the voice call, do you have a something that you would call the correct, even though we both know correct is a terrible term to use for this, the correct usage of AI? Or is there even a correct way to use AI in software development?
I think treating it as a search engine first is a good step, and not as a tool to speed you up. And like learning how to use the prompting properly, learning how to dig deeper and ask questions. Like, I've had some of the most fun I've had is actually is engaging almost in a conversation with it, right? Like digging into the actual answers and pushing back on things. Because again, you'll say, hey, I need this, and it'll give you stuff, but it'll do stuff it'll make stuff up for you as well. So you've got to know, is that real? Is it just making it up? And you say, oh no, that doesn't work because that's not real. Oh yeah, sorry about that. Here's a completely different method because I've just now pivoted away.
You said this morning. I loved it.
So I think it's really a tool that when Google launched back in 1997, when Google launched, like that time period, it was revolutionary because you could advance your search capabilities, right? They being a power user of Google meant you could narrow your search results, you could focus your search results, you understood how to say, okay, I don't want anything older than a year and stuff. Up until that point, search engines had been pretty much text-based search that kind of give you a bunch of results, and then Google came along and really highlighted that this new way of doing it.
Yeah, there's more metadata to be seen. There's other ways to associate
AI is kind of an evolution on top of that in this context. Agreed. Where it's a useful search tool. It's smarter because it can give more context and it can understand. Well, it can, like, I'm not saying understand. I want to be careful.
Well, I know what you mean by understand, though, but we can use that term though, because our understanding of the word understand means that we give it context and it responds within that context.
Yeah,
we'll just define it as that general.
Like it says, right? You have to understand that it is, and it is not perfect. It is not going to just magically give you an answer that is 100% guaranteed going to work. So you have to know how to push past that. And I think so. It's a tool that needs to be learned and understood from a development perspective. I think it can help in so much as filtering out 20 years of .NET stuff that is kind of not as relevant as the last 5 years, right? I think that's where I find it useful. But again, it's also worth noting that those models are not updated very frequently.
Yeah, it's expensive to update models.
So if you are working on cutting edge stuff, AI is less reliable. Might be more reliable if you're looking at techniques and asking questions, but it is less reliable.
There's emergent technology for ways to update models without needing to bake in a whole new data set and do this whole bunch of training. I found this very, 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 very interesting. I have counterexamples to what you're saying, to where I have been extremely impressed with the quality of output on the first shot, and there have been little tweaks that I've needed to do. Because what would you say to this being a standard use case of AI in a workspace? And this is semi-contrived because it's how I'm using it. I think it's an okay way to use it, but I want to know what your opinions are. I work on lots of apps at the same time. There are many updates that need to be made, and they are all similar type of work to things that I've already done before. This thing here is a new type of thing that I have not done before, which is access S3 buckets using .NET. So what I did is I had Claude generate the library with documentation with all of the stuff, and I worked with it for many days. At the same time, I'm working on DDMS modernization, RTrack modernization, the stuff that I enjoy doing. And this thing built the library for me. Is that valid use of AI? If not, how would you change it? How would you augment it? If it kind of is, what would you change about it?
So, kind of scaffolding. Scaffolding out the basics of what you
No,
wanted. So
this
you
one
work with
wasn't the
it,
scaffolding though. This was the entire library written by Claude with documentation and how to use.
and you validated all the cases.
Have not yet, but I am about to pull it into DDMS. I'm going to read one of the docs I instructed it to make, which is called Blazor Integration Guide. And I'm going to follow this. I'm going to see if it works as expected. I had been reading through the code and applying my own code styles. Like, some of the things that it does is something that a lot of other people like, which is not using curly braces on a single line if or single line block. I use curly braces for everything, even if it's only one line.
Yep, me too.
But it's just minor stuff like that. Some
Yeah.
UI cleanup, some things that make more sense, and tested the code as it went along, as it did each part. I'll show the conversation at a later date, but right now I just wanted to do a general broad overview and look at.
So I don't generally have a problem with that concept. I do have a concern that it would be basically copy and pasting essentially
It
what
is. It was.
it is compiling a set of other people's code into one.
Okay. And there's an issue with that, based on the way that you're saying that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of the risks we have in terms of, because ever since I've been in this field, right, I've always heard, people wanted to protect IP, they wanted to protect concepts, and I think we've lost control of a lot of that. Give an example. My wife writes some like poems and stuff like that, right? And she publishes some, but she publishes them, and she in the site where she had it, it was marked as "this should not be scraped by AI." Well, those poems got pirated, and Meta doesn't care about that, so it scrapes them. So her poems are being rebuilt and used as AI,
Right.
and phrases and whatnot.
As training data for AI. Yeah.
People work, right? So her style, her wording, etc., is going free. So when it comes to code, we lose control of that quickly. So you don't know if the code you are using is. We don't have IP protection necessarily around our code, and AI is going to obscure that. But I do worry about taking someone else's code wholesale.
That works. Yeah.
I think, and just popping it out and saying, yeah, this is my project, right?
Right. So it's more the issue of people claiming other people's work to be their own original.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That being said, I can see how it saves time. I can definitely see the structuring a project, using it as a frameworking tool to outline a project. If you are like, if you know, Liquid Sky, if I said, hey, could you create me a new component based upon the style I have, I'm going to use application, I'm going to use domain, I'm going to use infrastructure, just create, scaffold all those pieces out. That'd be awesome, right? Because it could point all the dependencies or something like that. That would be a great use for me, because it would allow me to speed up that scaffolding and make it consistent. That I have no issue with. But the bigger the project gets, the more you have to check and the more you have to validate, and you're going to miss those. You could miss those potentially quirky side effects.
Yeah, those edge
You
cases.
still got to validate all that code, is what I'm saying. You still
Yes,
have to go through every
agreed.
single piece of code and make sure 100% you understand what it's doing before you even say, yes, I can guarantee this is production ready.
Then does that make it more acceptable to you if, let's say that, again, Claude generated this entire library, I copy pasted it. Well, it was more a case of I created a Git repo, gave Claude access to that Git repo, and then said, let's create the structured documents. Let's put everything where it belongs. Again, I want to show that chat. We're going to step through it someday, but I want to take this moment to do a lot more, allowing you to speak your mind, especially in this scenario, because this is a real world case where I'm using this for a work product. And I want to know what is the general consensus. And right now, the main thing that I'm hearing is it's not good to just copy pasta, validate everything, and make it maintainable for future developers. So yeah. So I want you to see like the whole entire code base right now, but first your thoughts and opinions. So is it more acceptable to use AI that, let's say, generated the entire project, as long as a developer, an experienced developer, reviews every single bit of code?
I mean, ultimately, yeah. I mean, we have tried to tackle a lot of it's boilerplate, right? A lot of it is pretty much standard. You've basically created something wrapped around S3 that is, you know, what you need to do, which is just manage document uploads, etc. It's rinse and it's rinse and repeat. It doesn't have the how do I put it? Not a lot of complexity to the concept. There's a complexity in terms of the amount of code that needs to be written. And for you know, since since programming has been around, we've always tried to look at how do we make the machine do more for us that we don't want to do
Right,
ourselves.
exactly.
So I don't have a necessary problem with with this specifically. Again, code ownership is a problem for me, so much as if I didn't control it, if I didn't write the code, how do I stand by the code?
Right, okay.
That concerns me. But if you go through every single line of code that it's generated, if you go through every single piece and validate, yeah, this is correct, this is the right style, it's readable, it's maintainable, it's consistent. Again, that's one of my key words that I harp on, right? Consistency matters. And inconsistency highlighted.
Consistency is key.
Yeah. Then yeah, I think is a great idea, a great use for this. I'm just for context, I am looking at using AI in Liquid Sky. I have got prototypes built already where I'm basically asking it to help me go through the planning and the tasking and generate things for me, and kind of create context there, so that speeds that up and encourages, you know, because one of the problems we have is that PMs, or product teams in general, don't always want to do the work. So why not speed it up? And
Right. And so like this is a big area that I think a lot of people are focused on, which is if we're letting AI do all the work, one, companies will want to hire less developers. Two, we'll have a lower quality of product because not everything is being checked by experienced developers. They're just going to hire someone that knows how to do prompt engineering, essentially. And three, we won't be able to give proper attribution, which is something that DC Aggie brought up 2 weeks ago, to where where the code sources are coming from. So we go on the internet, we go to Stack Overflow, find an answer for how to fix a thing, copy and paste the link for the Stack Overflow post. And hopefully the people in that Stack Overflow post also pasted the resources that they used to come to their conclusion.
But at the end of the day, we have to stand by the result, right? We as professionals have to say, I am confident that this code will do what it's asked to do, and to the point of fewer developers being hired, etc., because AI can just replace us. I think we will make that situation worse ourselves if we start saying, "Oh, well, we can do that in 5 minutes because AI can do it." We will make that harder.
Right.
Maybe it allows us to focus on more testing. Maybe it allows us to focus on more automation of testing, etc. But it's on us as professionals to not let that happen.
Right.
And again, I'm a big fan of don't work the hours you're not paid for, right? If you're hired to work, 8 hours a day, work 8 hours a day. Do not work more, because it just hides all that extra effort that you put in behind your normal paycheck, and they don't realize they're overworking you because you're just kind of getting it done.
Right. Absolutely. Okay, so I am going to pull DC Aggie in. While I'm doing so, I am going to make a statement that might be a little unpopular. So my statement is essentially that, again, I already see software development turning into this a conversation with some kind of AI agent, and we don't really use code ourselves. It generates a product and we update that product, not knowing what's going on under the hood. At least that's what product teams are going to look like. We're still going to be able to write software if we want, but I don't think that's what companies are going to go for moving forward with software development over time. Not, like you said, possibly not in your lifetime. I just think I see this as where the future is heading. So hello, DC Aggie.
Hello, world.
Hello. Okay, so were there things that TBD Gamer was already mentioning that you want to remark on first, and then we can get to any topics you want to bring up?
Yes, first it was very nice to hear his opinions and to see that some of the concerns that I have are shared with other folks. And as we mentioned, architecture doesn't just happen, and architecture is important. Architecture matters because we aren't producing something that is single use and throwaway most of the time. We're producing something that becomes a liability to us. We need to support it, we need to maintain it, we need to enhance it. And if it isn't architected well, those things are going to be difficult, possibly to the point of not being feasible or reasonable. And there was a debate, like in the 90s, about whether or not you could call software development engineering or architecture, because were there the disciplines and the structure and the professionalism around software development where you could classify it as engineering, for example. And I think we've worked hard as an industry getting to that point, right? We have design patterns and standards and practices and professional expectations in what you build and what you deliver. And I think a problem with AI producing large pieces of code, potentially entire projects or feature sets, is that you need to understand the code that's produced in order to support and enhance it later. And that code needs to comply with your architecture and design for your greater system and your set of skills that your team has in order for that to fit well. And potentially, AI could take all of that into consideration in the future, right? You could feed it your standards, your practices, your patterns, your architectures. You could give it reference to the rest of your code base, and it could take all that into consideration. That is not something I've seen at all in things that are
I saw
produced.
something yesterday that might be heading in that direction, though. But go ahead.
Yeah. So the support aspect of it, I think, is big. If you're asking AI to build code that you're going to deploy in production or sell to a customer, and then you need to support it, enhance it, maintain it long term, then your ability to understand what the produced code is doing, how it works, why it does the things that it does, how it does it, is critical. And so it's maybe not the shortcut that people think. Because even if AI hands you code that works today, you really still have the obligation to understand it if it's something that you're going to maintain long term. So the test I would give is if AI produces an entire feature branch for you, for example, and you're going to deploy that, my question is, if you don't have access to that AI anymore, and you need to make changes, or you need to fix a bug, or explain the behavior of that, do you understand it well enough? Are you confident that you could make those changes without the aid of that AI going forward? And if the answer to that is no, then it's probably not something that should be in code that you are going to put your name behind for supporting and maintaining.
So I want to make a remark on that, but I don't want you to respond to that yet. Just put your thumb on it. And it's, how do you feel that works with IDEs? If you no longer have access to that IDE anymore, how will you maintain the code? Is that similar? Before you answer that, TBD, do you have any responses to what he just said?
I mean, yeah, I think I'm in total agreement overall, but we do have a responsibility. It does raise, we have. I keep thinking back to, if you look back at the early 2000s, Microsoft released this wonderful tool called Access and Excel, and they created VBA scripting, and all these applications started being built up by these organizations. We don't need developers anymore because we can build these things, right? We just whack some scripts together and make a, and then an entire industry came around that was basically porting VBA apps to actual application code, because then all of a sudden the business realized they didn't have the knowledge to grow that tool beyond the basics of what they could figure out. And I know it's way more advanced than that, right? I'm not suggesting that AI is the new Microsoft Access, but I can see that happening again, where people think they can get rid of people who know what they're doing with the actual underlying code by just piecing things together and telling it to build something. But then they realize, oh, what happens when the business logic changes? How do we ask it to subtly change this stuff? How do we get that in? We can't. We need someone who understands line 3 and line 5 to change line 4 properly. We don't have that in the same way, so they don't know how to ask that question. So
that is amazing. Have you been staring at my notes? Because that is exactly what I want to say next.
Nice. Cool. So if you do have a response to that first, again, take my question last. You two continue going, because it sounds like there's a lot of agreement here, and I want that to be heard.
So I've been developing software professionally since 2006, so I'm at 19 years. And the first job that I had was working for a fairly large governmental organization. And on the development team, we started noticing this pattern. The individual organizations would have someone who was kind of tech savvy build something in Microsoft Access. And then that person would eventually leave. And when they left, that application would need to be supported or enhanced. And so it would come to the software developers, and we inherited incredibly, like, if you were trying to come up with examples of what not to do, that on steroids. Stuff that had already lost data, stuff that did not do what it said it was doing, almost always written in Microsoft Access. And it was probably an Excel sheet before it was
Yes.
access.
Oh my goodness, yes.
So we got to the point where we had banned access. We had them put scripts that every time you logged into a domain computer, it would look for and uninstall access. It was banned and not allowed because we couldn't do any of our actual development portfolio because we were constantly supporting or migrating away these monstrosities that had been built in Microsoft Access. And exactly the same pitch is being made today on AI. And I'm not saying that AI is the same thing as access, but I am saying that the salespeople, the evangelists, are making the same push. And I'm going to read to you an email that I got this week about an event next week at my current org. This is slightly unprofessional to be disclosing this, but I will skip the parts that will
redact.
potentially be tied to people or to my organization. This is in a follow-up to a strong invitation from my boss's boss's boss to attend something called an AI hackathon.
Right.
Some of you might be wondering, what is an AI hackathon? I'll do my best to answer that question. Have you had a great idea for an app or website, but you never built it? During this hackathon, you will use state-of-the-art vibe coding AI tools to build your idea in 1 day. Wait, you don't know what vibe coding is? Don't worry, it's a term that's only a couple months old.
It's a terrible
Vibe coding
I don't like it.
is a new way to create software by describing a feature, and the AI implements them. You become the product manager, and the AI is your software development team. I'll pause there for effect.
Okay, real quick. Since you're pausing, there is an effect on me. I hate that they took the word vibe, which is something that has been used positively in our community. We have Source Restory, whose vibes are the best on the internet. We have Bit Gamey. I have been told that I have a decent vibe on this stream, and now we're tainting it with people associating it with AI. So we're vibe coding instead of meaning we're laid back or chill. It means we're using AI to do everything, and everyone has their opinions about AI. Okay.
Right. So the sales pitch is the same as we've seen over and over. You don't need a development team. You just need people who know what you want, and this tool is going to replace the development team. But just like Microsoft Access or any of the other rapid development tools that are aimed at product owners or customers, with the promise to replace the need for developers, either it's not going to meet your needs, or it will meet your needs only until it doesn't. And then some poor developer will be brought in to try to save it by porting it to an actual development platform or to human written code. And if you're wondering why this AI hackathon is being pushed so hard at my organization, I can tell you that number one, we suffer strongly from people at the upper level management and higher attending conferences or reading trade materials and getting very excited about things that are being pitched to them. And speaking of pitch, this hackathon is not some organic thing. It has sponsors and funding and advertisements. And if you click on the links in the email, or if you go to the webpage, it is a sales pitch, and it is quote unquote a contest. It will be judged, and what you win is a trial subscription to paid services. So there is an agenda or a motivation behind this hackathon by the people who are going to actually make it happen. And it's being pushed and represented by people higher up in the org chart at my organization. And that leaves a bad taste in my mouth. I've debated as to whether or not I'll attend this. I will happen to be not on campus, but I'll be in the area next week when this happens. So I could attend it in person if I wanted to. I'm not sure if my curiosity or my disgust will end up winning out. But the idea that they are pitching to the people that I support and build software to, the idea that they could spend a day describing to AI something that they want and bypass I think, misleading and a an attempt to get money and contracts and subscriptions. But worse, I have flashbacks to inheriting things built in Microsoft Access, because when what they've built
I was
kind of
probably the one that
works
built
but
them
doesn't
too.
work, eventually someone is going to inherit it. And maybe we're lucky, and
Orange.
in the future, even better AI will be able to inherit it and do what they want. But I have a sneaking suspicion it'll be me. And I'm to a place in my career where I'm not particularly interested in cleaning up
Other people's
messes
code.
that people were warned not to make and told would be a mess. And because AI is just a tool that is very fast at doing stuff, it's going to be able to
Inaccessible.
create very complicated and very large messes very quickly. I mean, just one division's customers could produce a lifetime of support for us in short order.
Oh.
And then lastly, I want to share an example, because we've talked hypotheticals about what does this look like. So I'm going to share an actual example of a junior developer. And you are not a junior developer by any stretch. It's a confusing term. There is no freshman or sophomore developer. Junior is entry level. Junior is someone who has no experience on their resume before this job and has been in it probably for less than a year. And maybe they stay a junior developer for several years. It depends. But junior developers are inexperienced, and there's no one on this call that would come close to that title. So when I say junior developer, I mean someone who this time last year or 3 years ago was not working professionally in software development. All right. So junior developer comes to me asking for help with code that is written against an API or CAD software, right? He has been tasked in automating some things that need to happen in CAD. He tells the people who have tasked him that he can write software to do this. He comes to me with software and wants help to figure out why it isn't doing what he wants it to do. I spend half a day reading through the code and trying to assist him before I start asking questions like, did this ever work? And what is this supposed to do? Sort of questions. And it's at that point that I get, well, this is what ChatGPT told me. So the code was written by ChatGPT. It never worked. It just gets bigger and bigger as he adds more to it. And when it gets to the point where he's making no progress at all, he comes to me asking for help, and very frustratingly does not disclose that it's ChatGPT until he can't answer my questions.
So
Now, we
what I'm
built
okay.
using human intelligence the solution that he wanted in what I would guess is maybe 200 lines of code. And it works, and he understands what it does. But ChatGPT was dangerous here because his attitude was, well, ChatGPT gave this to me, it should work, right? Like, he didn't understand that what ChatGPT was. And he was so junior in software development that when he sees code that looks like it would work, or maybe even compiles, then of course he's going to trust it. I mean, this is AI generated code. It should be like infallible, right? People have these misconceptions about what this stuff is. And thankfully, it didn't work, and he had to come to me. The real danger is, what if it worked? What if it compiled and kind of ran, or he delivered it to the customers and they thought it was working and it wasn't? Or it did, and then he needed to make an enhancement, and things get to the point where when he does have to come to a senior developer, that it is a horrible mess, and we're going to have to apologize to customers, tell them that data is missing,
Right.
and then start from scratch. Those are the things that stress me out. Like, thinking about just going through this scenario in my mind, my stomach hurts right now thinking about this. And junior developers can cause messes. Junior developers do cause messes. Everyone causes messes. junior developers are prone to it because you start out by making messes, and the trauma from cleaning up your own messes makes you better at not making messes. But AI is really just, I think of it as this like multiplier, or this factor on top of the messes that can make them get really dangerous really quick. And in the immediate term, on a practical point, I'm worried about junior developers. I'm worried about my customers being sold this Vibe AI stuff where they're going to describe what they want. Something's going to be spit out by some tool, and then I'm going to end up supporting it. And I do not want to do that.
Okay. So that one right there, I think, is the loudest voice. But what I heard in that was there is more examples of this is not the right way to use AI. This is where it will lead in the negative use of AI. TBD had something to say during that.
Yeah, I've got to leave in like 2 minutes, so I'm just gonna say this.
Please do.
So one of the things I know I've raised a lot is, as developers, we are often treated like tools, and we let ourselves be treated like tools because we like solving problems. We like going off, hey, I need to fix this. Okay, I'll go do this, right? So we are just an extension to product teams, to management teams of the business, in terms of we are just a set of tools that can be given a task, produce the task. If they can shortcut that and get that without having to hire someone who might be out sick, etc., they're going to try and do that. We need to take more ownership of our professional responsibilities. We need to work more on the integration with the business for requirements gathering, for things like that, for general conversations. We do not need to be, oh, they live in the basement, they do the things we ask them to do, we just hand them down through this product manager, and that's what. So we need to take back some of that. And I think this entire thing, I mean, I see the problems. I tend to agree with all the points. I think it's something that we as a profession need to not let happen again. We need to up our general professionalism and interactivity. We can't be the reclusive people that just go off and do the job we're being asked to do all the time. But I gotta run.
Well,
I will be back.
Do you have time for a stand up, or if not, that's totally understandable.
I'll be back in half an hour.
Oh, okay.
So
cool.
Half an hour, so I'll be back.
See you then.
Bye.
All right, so the floor is yours, DC Aggie. I have so much to say in response to those things. Again, I have some pretty strong opinions regarding what it means to have a more collaborative essence or use of an AI tool, and how that can be successful. And I don't think we should throw out the baby with the bathwater and all of that stuff. I wanted to throw it back in your court for any responses to what TBD just said first, and then anything else that you want to bring up.
Yeah, no, I agree. We've struggled for a long time getting software development to the point where it is professional and something that you could legitimately call engineering or architecture. And we have to worry about salespeople. We have to worry about customers. We have to worry about junior developers. We have to be the guardrails there. When I'm starting a project with customers, I often think of my job only half as helping them figure out what they want, right? Like extracting their requirements. The other half is convincing them that they don't actually want many of the things that they think that they want. Yeah. Those aren't things that AI is likely to do. And customers are smart and know their domain and their business, but they don't understand it. It's easy to forget how people who aren't software developers have no real concept of what goes in to the work that we produce. And you've probably experienced this if you ever have a customer who says, well, how long can this take? It's just one more button.
Yeah,
right. They just think of it as a button on a screen. They don't understand. Yeah, what's behind that, or
Triggered.
yeah. And so these are the people that are being sold this Vibe AI, or being told that if you sign up for the subscription or pay for this access, that your developers are going to be supercharged, and they're going to be able to uh, get through your backlog in no time, or maybe you don't even need your developers. You can just describe stuff that you want to AI, and it'll build it for you, right? Like that's the literal sales pitch in the email that I got this week that didn't just go to me, but went to my customers. And that's going to end poorly. Maybe those promises can be met one day. I have doubts. Maybe it can't, but I can guarantee that my customers can't type into a prompt box their business language and what they think they want, and
And
have
get
AI
back.
produce something that is going to be useful. And I can tell you that because that's phase one in our project, right? They come to us with a project request where they've typed into a form describing what they want. And if I've done my job right, at least 20% of the time in the project from request to completion is going to be spent talking to them about what they actually want and building specifications
Right.
and pushing back and helping them figure out and asking follow-ups for things that we need to know on the technical side. If I were, so when you talk to AI, the like personality is strange, and different AI tools have different kind of personalities in the way they phrase responses or respond to your requests. But they all share one thing in common. They're very eager to just give you what you ask for, exactly what you ask for. Maybe they're right or wrong, but
Right.
they
Even
never
if they make
push
it up.
back. Right. They never push back. And they do make things up. They get things that are wrong. You can ask ChatGPT for code for simple things. Things that would be like, the programming class that you can take in college, that if you're not a computer science major.
CS
And
105?
yeah, it's a 100 level or 1000 level course. Yeah. And you're going to do things like write code that deals with palindromes, or very simple stuff. You could take an assignment from one of those. You could take an assignment from one of those courses, describe it to someone, have them play a game of telephone where they describe the assignment to ChatGPT, and it will confidently respond with code. And it might not even compile. And it probably won't do exactly what it probably wouldn't earn an A in this entry-level programming class for people who aren't programmers. I did, I don't know if you gamble, but there's a game called Jacks Are Better. So it's a poker game, usually play on video poker, where you're dealt a hand of cards and you can pick to trade any number of them in and get a replacement. And then at the end, if you have a hand that is Jacks or better, you'll either win your money back or better, right? It's a common game that's been around forever. And I asked ChatGPT to write Jacks or better for HTML and JavaScript. And to its credit, the thing that it built the first time didn't cause the JavaScript to crash. Like, the website came up and it responded to clicks. But it wasn't Jacks or better. It didn't have all the win conditions. It didn't have the ability to bet money. It didn't have the things that were Jacks or better. And no amount of prompting could get it to produce something that was
interesting.
Jacks or better. Because you would say, well, what about this? Or what about that? And it would say, oh yeah, absolutely. And it would make one change and drop another feature or get something else wrong. It couldn't even keep the context of the conversation or what it had produced before and fix or add a feature without breaking or dropping another. And this was months ago, right? And they keep updating ChatGPT. Right. So maybe it would do better now.
Like yesterday they actually added a thing called memory where it remembers past chats. Kind of crazy.
Yeah. So I am terrified that in my future we'll be implementing or supporting code generated by junior developers or customers with AI tools that now my job is not to produce solutions for customers, but to support or prop up solutions produced through automation.
Right.
And those solutions will either not meet the needs of my customers, or they might meet the initial needs, but will be fragile to the point of not being updated. And so what I'd like people to think about is the question of what is legacy code? So think for a moment, the place you work now or the places you've worked before, what things are considered legacy? And your definition might vary person by person, but I think the thing in common is legacy code is code that you cannot or do not want to mess with. And maybe that's because the person who wrote it is gone, or maybe it's because it's using a tool you aren't
It's definitely not my
skilled
definition
at,
of legacy code.
or
not even
or
close.
maybe it's using an older version, or there's some reason why it is fragile, and so it cannot be enhanced or maintained or supported easily. Right? There's something about it that makes it kind of stuck in what it is because it isn't supportable. And it seems to me like AI is just going to produce code that is immediately legacy. Maybe it works fine,
Okay.
but do you understand it and can you maintain it?
Uh-huh.
Whereas if you have a team of developers that have standards and architecture and design principles and shared knowledge and vocabulary, you're building things that you can maintain, that one person can write and another person can inherit. And that's not a big hurdle to providing support for your customers on that solution. If you have code produced by AI that you are dependent on the AI to continue to maintain, so that's code that you don't understand inside and out, that you aren't confident in making a change or an addition to, then it's just legacy code on day one. So that's my parting thoughts, I suppose.
Not parting. You're gonna stay here for a second. I'm holding you hostage. So
Parting on my large spill of thoughts and emotions related to the topic, but I'm
Cool.
very excited to hear your thoughts and your follow-up on the things we've been talking about, because we've been monopolizing the microphone.
Oh no, this is perfect. I want you to. I mean, I have every other day to talk about this. It's my stream, so I want to hear from you. And I love that you took the time to say this. Thank you so much for sharing all of it. I have a lot of rebuttals, I guess is what I would call them, mostly because I have found a way of working with AI to generate some pretty high quality things that are maintainable, that are well structured, that if I were to approach it with my normal approach of this is someone else's code that I need to learn, it feels very much the same, except that when I start looking through it, I'm not like, what the hell is this? Why did you choose that? I'm like, wow, that was a really interesting way for you to do that, and I like it. I kind of want to adopt that for my own approach for things. So I've had fantastic experiences. Hey, didn't I change the camera to show my desktop? I didn't push start virtual cam. Dang it. So you weren't even seeing any of this stuff. So here's an example. Starting 10 days ago, according to the project notes, the chat log, I started asking, because I knew that I needed to start experimenting with S3 in AWS, but I didn't have time because we're working on this RTrack data import utility thing, and I want to get RTrack converted over to, or upgraded to .NET Core from .NET Framework. And I want to focus my time doing that. I enjoy doing that type of thing. I don't want to have to do the research through the, I don't know if you have read any Amazon docs lately, but through the quality of the Amazon docs for figuring out how to interact with Amazon S3, AWS S3. So my initial prompt was almost exactly one of the things that you're like, if you ever put something like this into an AI, it's just going to spit out random stuff that might not necessarily be correct stuff. But my initial prompt was essentially, let's do some planning phase. Wait, this is a continuation. Oh, I didn't scroll all the way up. I was like, this is me just saying, hey, good job with what you've done so far. I want to have my application be able to store and retrieve files in an AWS S3 service. Can you generate a new Blazor web app with render mode server interactive proof of concept prototype application that has UI to upload a file, blah, 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 blah. So I described what I wanted, and it's like, sure, I can do that. No pushback, like, are you sure you want to do this? So you're right on that regard. It's just going to do what I asked it to. But being an experienced developer, again, the proper use case of AI, being an experienced developer who has considered what are the actual core elements that I need in order for this thing to work with my app, I'm asking for the specific things after having already done that conversation filtering. So what I would do with the client as far as product planning. Also, high defines. If you guys haven't seen defines lately, they stream. She does amazing. Cool. Took a cutter printer and puts a pencil in it, and it does art. It's awesome. You should check it out. Okay, so I don't want to monopolize the whole time with the entire process of this, but what I do want to show is the amount of effort put into this was still pretty high. It was as if I was doing the research, because I would take this code, put it into a project. I eventually put that project into a Git repo. I gave Claude access to that project and to the different parts and pieces of the project. And as we went along, we built up the project. I would refresh the Git repo to show it the files, the changes that I made. So it was more like a pair programming experience on my part. Had it keep a README up to date, project documentation, so we always knew where we were. Whenever there was a certain branch that we would create, for example, it would have a checklist that would be, here's the planning phase for what we're going to do in this branch. I'm trying to find one right now. Not you. File versioning, for example. And there were some references to actual SDK stuff. My stuff. Goodness me. Are any of you guys checklists? None of you look like Markdown. But anyway, point is, it was a collaborative effort between an experienced developer, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn or anything, but an experienced developer and an AI agent that does have knowledge of programming patterns, architectural systems, how to use AWS S3 SDKs in a .NET application, and I didn't bother to learn any of that. I delegated all of that responsibility to the AI to explain to me the things that I needed to know about it, show me the documentation. So in the end, my junior developer, my side programmer, my helper, whatever you want to call it, created this application that I would run in the browser and test on occasion, which is this one here. And what it would do is I would take a file, such as in, oh gosh, I'm not somewhere that has files. Goodness me, I should have been a little bit more prepared for that. Here,
so I have follow-up questions. Can I interject?
Yeah,
should I wait?
Yeah, please do. No. Interject when you want.
So question number one, are you in the pair programming analogy here, who's driving, right? Like I know that you're expressing that the AI is the junior developer in the role.
I didn't
But
mean
who's
that.
driving meaning, well, no, I mean that's the way I would use it, right? Because
Yeah.
from my previous conversations, you know that I'm skeptical of the output of the AI generated code.
And I'm
so
not.
I
Not.
would by
So that's why I
necessity,
didn't
I
want to
would
call
be
it a junior myself.
all right. So in the pair programming, who is driving? So are you taking snippets or assignments or questions
Cool.
that are being given by the AI, and you are producing the actual product, or is it the other way around? You're instructing and it's producing the actual product,
Right.
because maybe you are way better at prompting than me, or maybe Claude is way better. The tools I've used is ChatGPT directly or ChatGPT through
Oh, I
Copilot.
was going to show you a ChatGPT thing here in a second too.
So my experience with ChatGPT directly or through Copilot is that there is, I'd say, only a 70 or 80% chance that anything I prompt for will even compile.
Oh, wow.
That is even like syntax is correct, right? And then an even lower chance that it's actually going to do all the things that I've asked for. And maybe I need to be better at prompting, or maybe I need to do many more prompts or smaller pieces. There could
that
definitely
would
be
be
a difference there. But my question is, all of that is to get to my question, which is,
right.
Are you directing the AI, and the AI is building your project, putting the files together, and all of that, or are you driving and it is giving you things to copy paste or insert, and you're kind of orchestrating the buildup of the project?
Option 3. It's a collaborative effort. So, the thing about prompting, real quick, I would be interested to show what a session would look like for me using Claude AI to build a feature, because I do think that seeing it used in this way could help a lot of people feel a little bit more confidence that you can, as long as you are someone that already knows how to do a lot of the research yourself and are familiar with the language, the framework, but maybe not the library or the other technology that you are trying to interact with, in my case, S3 buckets, that you really, really can have a successful experience with it. And you can control how much you allow the AI to produce for you, whether you're just asking for hints or tidbits or full-on code, which is what I did with this entire library. So as far as responding to your question, it is very collaborative. At first, it's me defining the project, but saying, you take over now and specify what things are we going to need in this type of scenario. Put that into some kind of documentation that fully describes the application so that we can implement it. And again, I have it create checklists so that we implement each thing that it comes up with together. I review that checklist and I'm like, we don't really need that thing, so we can get rid of that. We don't need that thing. And then as it produces files, I'm like, I copy and paste it into the project, into the place that it goes, that this thing says it goes. I make my judgment calls on, this is how I would normally structure my project, so I'm going to update that. That's going to get pushed to a Git repo. This thing has access to the Git repo, sees my project structure, sees my preferred coding styles. I go through and apply a lot of the recommendations that the IDE gives me, like using collection expressions, because it still doesn't know how to use those, object initializers, all of that fun stuff. And you can see what it did to the Razor code here, where it mangled it, and that was a little bit of effort trying to get it to format correctly. So that was that whole section. Okay, go ahead.
In the collaborative process, do you spend time correcting mistakes that it's made? Like, for example, do you make a clear prompt where it produces something that does not work or does not do what you asked for? So, for example, maybe I'm really bad at prompting, because just LLMs in general, I have a very hard time getting consistent, reliable responses for things that I would have thought would be the strength of an LLM. Like going to ChatGPT and saying, please write a story about a cat that is exactly 3 sentences long, that includes
Yeah,
the
you're
name of
gonna
the cat.
pour
The
200
first
characters
sentence,
long.
the first character of the first sentence should begin with the same letter as the cat's name, and the last sentence's last words, last letter should be the same as the last letter of the cat's name. That is a prompt that you could give to a third grader, and they could probably get it to work. ChatGPT just can't. I mean, maybe it can now. It's been a
Right.
while since I tried this, months. But that seemed like something that, like, so it seemed so easy and so specific, but it just can't do it.
But you're thinking in terms of human. We're forgetting that AI is not human. It's not intended to be human. And if we try to use it like human, we're not going to be using a tool correctly. Do we use a hammer like a human? We don't. We use it for what it's intended for what it's good at. So same with AI. If you can find those things that it excels at and you leverage it in that way, then you will be more successful at getting results.
Well,
In my
maybe I have
opinion,
a
again.
maybe I have a fundamental misunderstanding of how an LLM, a general LLM like ChatGPT, is intended to be used, because I would have thought that asking for a 3-sentence long story about a cat, including the cat's name, with the first sentence starting with the first letter of the cat's name, the last sentence is the last word ending with the same letter as the cat's name, would be a perfect example of being very specific and making a very simple request. And that should be
You are
something
being
that an
specific,
LLM...
but you're making simple requests compared to how a human would understand it, not how an LLM would understand it. So that's why you understand the tool itself and what kinds of words you can say to the LLM, or you can use to describe to the LLM the thing that you're trying to achieve, so that it will respond in the way that you're expecting. So it's kind of like speaking a different language. You don't say, write a story about a cat to a person who only speaks Japanese, because they won't understand you.
Right. I guess I just don't understand what the point of a general LLM chatbot is for if it can't do this. So, for example,
Anything.
um,
Yeah.
ChatGPT is being used by not a place that I work, but a place to produce this sort of stuff, right? Big blocks of English text that would take a
Again,
long
using
time.
the tool for an incorrect purpose, in my opinion.
Right, and it is failing at that task, but the effort going through the output and verifying its correctness is approaching or possibly greater than the effort of actually producing it on your own, and so that isn't happening. And so prompts are being made, responses are being generated, and those responses are being placed in work products.
Right.
And that is going to cause problems for people.
It is.
And so I'm worried about handing these tools to people. In the case of the story about a cat, that's just a simple example of something that someone would assume ChatGPT would have no problem with, based on how ChatGPT is sold.
Right. Okay. So
But
humans would do
extrapolating to
assumptions.
software development, right? So this has been a problem in tech and IT for a long time. What the sales team pitches versus what the product can do, right?
Yes.
And the pitch is always that, oh yeah, this will easily do exactly what you're looking for and more. And that pitch is rarely realized. But with AI, it seems especially off, because the pitches made, like for this AI hackathon next week, the pitch being made to my customers is, in one day, an entire product based on your descriptions, written by AI. And when they say written by AI, there is this implied general idea that it will produce 100% accurate, infallible code,
True.
because my average customer hears AI and they don't think what we think. They think about sci-fi movies. They think about Data from Star Trek. They don't think that it's just statistically putting out text based on the text that you put in and digesting a bunch of text from the internet and other sources.
Right.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, if I can't ask ChatGPT for a 3-sentence story about a cat with a specific start and end letter, then I just don't understand how you can prompt your way to a large, complicated, production-ready product and be confident that it is doing what you want, unless you put so much time reviewing the code that it produces that you approach the point of not having actually saved yourself any time.
How about this
So
for
that's
an analogy? I would like for you, DC Aggie, to produce a fruit from your big toe on your left foot that is shaped like an apple but tastes like an orange. Can you do that?
I cannot. But if
Then
I were
I can't trust
ChatGPT,
you to write any good code ever.
but if I were ChatGPT, I would say, sure, here it is. And then I would tell you that I had, even though I hadn't.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true. So that is a difference. However, you're still dismissing that anything that you can generate from AI is unusable.
While DC Aggies can't produce fruit from their toes, ChatGPT can create stories and can follow simple instructions. But for some reason, this specific instruction can't be followed. And I can't think of any reason why it couldn't. Right?
And that's okay. I agree with you on that. Yes. But then to draw the conclusion that you can't use the AI for anything, you can't trust it for anything at all because of that, that's where I am having issue.
Well, what if your
maybe tomatoes?
What if your customer wanted you to produce code, and one of the things it was supposed to do was once a day tweet a story about a cat that was 3 sentences long, or a specific character count because it needed to fit inside a tweet?
Then you, as developer, would do some extra LoRa, for example, that gives it multi-shot examples of this is what it means to make a story with these parameters. And then it would be able to follow that pattern. But as an LLM, it has generalistic pattern matching.
Except that isn't what is being sold.
Right. I agree with you. I'm not arguing with that at all. I'm arguing the point that you can't dismiss the capabilities, especially if you do, as like, let's say our job evolves in time, which is what I am foreseeing and what I'm preparing for myself, instead of being afraid of using it, maybe trying it out now, seeing what the capabilities are, seeing how I can make it do the things that I want it to do, and embracing it without letting it do everything for me. Can we eventually get to the point where we can say, here is the right way to ask this specific AI engine or prompt or whatever, and my job is to craft specially worded prompts so that we get the result that we want and it's maintainable. Your question at the very beginning when you first started was the thing that struck me the most. What would happen if you don't have access to that AI anymore and you're left with this magical code base that's probably not even readable by humans anymore because it's writing assembly directly or it is writing bytecode directly? How are we going to maintain that code in the future? That was a good question. I don't have an answer for that easily, but I still think that maybe there is a concern that is misplaced being communicated.
Yeah, I mean, from a philosophical level, maybe. From a practical level, my concern is based upon things that I expect to encounter in the very near future. I will be very, very happy, relieved on a mental and physical level to be wrong. But I very, very much expect in the very near future to be deploying software solutions built by AI, possibly without the development team's involvement, and
Yeah.
needing to make sure that it continues to work and that it can be enhanced going forward. And
And I think
if you've built this using a vibe coding tool for a company that doesn't exist anymore, or whose subscription has become incredibly expensive, it is not unrealistic to think that the tool is no longer available to you.
Yeah.
And even if the tool is available to you, it is not unrealistic to think that you could make a request for an enhancement that it would fail at creating, or that it would add the enhancement and break something else, based on the experiences I've had with LLMs and code generation so far. And if there is a way to avoid that, that's great. But are those ways going to be available to my customers that are being pitched on vibe coding? No. And like we've discussed, and other people have commented, your customers don't even actually know what they want to describe. A good portion of your job is to help them figure out what it really is that they want, what the metrics for success are, and convincing them when one of the things they think they want is really going to be a bad thing in the long run. And you're completely short-circuiting that if you just jump to what's being pitched to us for vibe coding, which is a product owner describes something they want, and in a day, they have what the development team would take 6 to 18 months to produce.
I mean, that is the expectation. That is what they're selling. However, gosh, there are just so many things, and I don't know how to put them in the correct order. I want to take notes while you're talking because I have responses to these things, and there's just a lot of things that are deeply rooted in there's going to be bad code out there. How is that affecting you? And then your response has been the thing that you see happening to our existing developers, the people who are experienced in the field, is companies will start phasing in junior developers that they can pay $10 an hour to write prompts, copy and paste code into a project, get it to compile, and it looks like it does what it's supposed to do. And your job, Mr. Developer, Miss Developer, is to look at that code and make it maintainable, add features, clean it up. And that's something you don't want to do, right? That's one of the things that you voiced as a fear, according to my
Yes, and that's something it's not a new problem, right? Junior developers have always been the source of this problem. The difference is junior developers are now going to do years of bad work in seconds. So it's a volume and a speed issue. It's a problem that we have existing practices built around protecting ourselves from and improving the skills of a junior developer for. And those existing practices are not capable of addressing the same problem at the speed and volume that AI can produce. Right? I mean, a junior developer could imagine a junior developer that you hire. They stick around for 9 to 24 months, and they might produce some messes, 2 or 3 maybe products in that time that for some reason it slips through the cracks and causes a headache for you in the long run. Ideally, you would avoid that. The same developer armed with AI and an eagerness to check things off and move on to the next product could, before you even figure out there's a problem, produce more mess than you're equipped to ever catch up on. And that is my concern. Is not that it's something that couldn't happen before, but that you're amping it up to a level that is not addressable by the things that we've built over decades to address this known existing human problem, and making it a superhuman problem.
Yeah, and I really would like to propose that your concern is about your projected like you're projecting this is how it's going to happen, because that's what I'm doing too. We all do it. And your perception that this is just going to exacerbate an existing problem, as opposed to that problem is going to get so big, and there are going to be plenty of companies that are going to try this approach, find out that it's not working for them, and then find the developers. I hope to pioneer a whole host of developers that are going to be more confident in this, that are able to use all of the tools at their disposal to make even higher quality products, because there are enough developers out there that care about the quality of products. You are coming from a place of, I want there to be good code in the world. I don't want people just going around willy-nilly copying and pasting stuff from the internet, from AI. AI is exacerbating that issue, but it is already there and it is happening. And I don't think AI is the issue. I think it is the human condition and enabling people to perpetuate that. But one day, what I think might happen is that companies will see they get higher quality products if they choose to use resources, developers, tools who give more care to the quality of product that comes out. Because once again, like you were asking, I don't know if this even ties in, but I wanted to answer this because it's bugging me. You were asking if there are places where this thing gives incorrect information, or if I start driving it and telling it stuff. So here's one where I'm like, I would prefer to use :root with CSS custom props, and it was trying to use Sass variables everywhere and import them everywhere. But there are exceptions that happen, and the way that I identify them, if I can't resolve it myself. So the first thing that I try to do is resolve it myself. If I can't resolve it myself, then I'll just paste in, here's the error that's happening. And I haven't been able to identify why this is happening. Please review this and explain why it's happening, and then provide a fix for it. And I want to find the wording for that. But those are the kinds of things where it's like, now I'm using it as a learning tool at the same time as allowing it to generate the code that satisfies the need. And then there is that refinement step.
While you're looking for that, would you like some positive takeaways that I've had from
anything
AI?
that you want? So even if the only thing that you have are negative experiences with it, I want to hear it. But if you do have positive, I'll listen to
I
it.
do have some positives. So I just recently returned to a project that I've been working on, and it's to add a new feature that will complete phase 1 of the project. It's a fairly straightforward feature, and it involved writing HTML, JavaScript, and a little bit of C# for a web forms project. So what I did was use ChatGPT, a bit through Copilot and a bit directly. And I treated it as rubber ducking, and as a junior dev that I would task with simple things that are trivial, but I didn't want to spend the time typing out myself. And here are my findings. Number 1, overall, I've finished the feature in less time than I think I would have if I wasn't doing that. So that's the first positive. Second is there are certain things that I found that it did do a very good job with. So when something was not working, I could provide the code or the scenario and ask some rubber duck type questions like, why might this exception be thrown in this situation? And it didn't always provide the right answer. It always confidently provided an answer, some of which were impossible, but it did help me find problems faster than I would have been able to find them on my own, or the cause of problems, right? The problem was obvious, exceptions were being thrown, and it helped figure stuff out. It was also very good at helping me remember things that I knew, but couldn't come up with off the top of my head. For example, Oracle is not my strong suit. I'm much more experienced in Microsoft SQL, and PL SQL and T SQL are surprisingly different. So like I remember there's a way that you can do some coalescing, and there I remember that there was a way that you could do skip and take in Oracle that was different than in
Yeah.
Transact
I kind
SQL.
of
So
remember
I
that.
could just ask it, how do you do this in Oracle like you would in SQL Server? Those were simple, straightforward things that it produced accurate responses to. But it also did a surprisingly bad job with JavaScript. I would ask it for
Interesting.
small things like a function that takes this input, manipulates these things in the DOM, and then it's done. And it would produce code that would declare a variable on one line, and a dozen lines later would clearly be trying to interact with that initial variable, but it would use a different name. So
Jeez.
so code that would just make the script block explode and not even run in the browser. And for someone who has enough experience in JavaScript that they can look at that and go, oh, it made this mistake, or oh, here's what it's clearly
Right.
trying to do, I could reprompt or I could fix it myself. But I could imagine this being maddening to someone who is just learning this stuff and going, well, why isn't this working? So I experimenting with this stuff on this feature, I had some positive takeaways, and I do think that my timeline was shorter using this tool than if I had done everything by hand from the start, because some of these simple boilerplate stuff that it did happen to produce correctly saved me time over typing it out myself. And I was treating it like I was doing pair programming, where I was driving and I was in the senior developer seat, and I was tasking my junior developer with producing some stuff that was essentially busy work or going out to the internet and looking something up for me. And just like a junior developer, what it came back with sometimes would be wrong, and sometimes wouldn't actually be what I was asking for, and required that I review it.
Intervention.
Um, yeah, and it did save me some time. It wasn't as productive as actual pair programming, because the other side of that story is, what does the junior developer get out of it, right? And if I was working with an actual junior developer and they came back with things that were flawed or wrong or an anti-pattern, then I could spend that time not just fixing what they gave me, but explaining to them why we do it a different way. And I would not only get the solution that I wanted, but I would also have a junior developer that knows more at the end. So that's how I used it on this feature, and I did have positive takeaways. Those
Yeah.
takeaways were not positive enough that I think that you could let a junior developer loose with it and have a net positive, and it certainly isn't positive enough that I could envision my customers doing vibe coding and producing something that would make them happy, or that wouldn't ultimately end up a mess that I end up supporting.
And so what I hear in that is that there is AI in its current state is not able to grow through the experiences it has with you. So if you correct it in one thing and then you ask it within that same chat session even to produce a result, as TBD said earlier in his stream that I loved so much, was, hey AI agent, do this method for me. Okay, here's this method with completely made up functions and methods that don't exist and a library that doesn't exist. Those libraries don't exist and that method doesn't exist, is the response. And it's like, oh, you're absolutely right. Here's the exact same code I just gave you. Or here's something else that is incorrect that I'm making up on the spot. So that does happen. But when you are working in a context aware session, and that's what I think. And I'm not, oh man, this is going to sound like a Claude advertisement. Don't use Claude unless you are compelled to use Claude. Use your judgment. This is where I have found these projects to be extremely beneficial when working with Claude. I don't use ChatGPT to generate code very often. I did use it to generate this thing here, which was a lot of fun. It was me and an emerging sentient seeming entity having conversations and having fun. But a project in Claude, here's your first bit of information. Read the README, know what the project is about, familiarize yourself with the code base, and when we respond, use this format. I usually put more descriptions in here about like read the project structure and stuff, but it was doing really, really well for this session. So it is context aware. The project files give it a history of the way that we have been writing the code together, the things that I have updated. It still doesn't use collection initializers, which is really annoying because I have to update it every single time. But here's an example of, here's an error that occurred. And I'm just being conversational with it. I'm like, this is weird. I'm getting a compile time error with the extension method. It's like, here is my reasoning. Here's the logic. Try this, try this. And I'm like, now that you pointed that out, because rubber ducking, because pair programming, because talking with another subject matter expert, a professional who has knowledge different to your own, was like, oh, you stirred something. And I'm using a different package. I didn't reference Microsoft Extensions Options Configuration Extensions. I used a different package instead. So here's what happened. Here's what I need. Here's what I don't need. And then here is that checklist situation that I talk about, where here's what we're currently refining. Here's the step that we're on. Here's what we've done so far. Provide that in the next chat session when this one inevitably fills up. And then, of course, the other issue with AI agents is they're all about money too. So, I mean, they cost money to run, but they still make a lot more money than they cost to run. So it'll be like, you're out of tokens and you have to wait until 12 p.m. in order to ask more questions. So during that time, I'm like, hey, that's fine. I'm working on this other project anyway. So we'll get back to it. But the thing that keeps coming up in chat, and the thing that does come up often, is so I want to read off Lore Sayer's question, not to ignore anyone else that has been commenting in chat. So Guacamole, I see your messages and I have been reading them, and they are very, very well written, pertinent, etc. Lore Sayer was saying, scaling this horizontally, won't LLM-powered junior devs be accompanied by LLM-powered QAs, automated TDD? And so there could be test code to shoot down the garbage code before so much of it floats up into products. So what we've been discussing mostly now is the current state of AI, where it is at, what its capabilities are, the pitfalls, the things that I think are pretty cool and emerging, but it's lacking a lot still, and it requires a lot of care and effort on the prompter's queries. So with Guacamole's statements, they're along the lines of garbage in, garbage out. Jeff came in and said, unless it doesn't tell you the answers that you're asking it about. And that was in response to the thing where I'm like, if it comes up with an issue, I'll try to figure it out if I can't figure it out. Or if I am truly in the middle of, like I keep pointing over here because RTrack AI stuff. So I'm working on RTrack. I am working on whatever other RMA application. So I get to still write code while this thing is completing another task for me that I want to have done so that I can complete the next part of the code and integrate S3 buckets into DDMS and get away with our file system, our file server. So I'm kind of all over the place because I want to respond to all of these things and I just keep losing my place. But I don't know, it's almost like instead of having all of these situations where what's being sold is use this AI technology to write programs for you, is what I think Copilot was intending. Copilot from GitHub was intending was, here is this code developer that you have access to. And I also am the type of person that is constantly thinking forward, trying to figure out where this could go. And if we, the developers that exist now, encourage it to go in this direction instead of only fight against it, that it could go is, here is this co-developer that learns with you and from you at the same time. So it's growing, you're growing, and you're writing code together as co-creative beings. But what I'm trying to get to were the statements that just keep coming up about AI is not doing this. AI is not doing this. And I hear them and I try those things and I'm getting different results. AI is doing these things. It is creating an entire library. It is creating maintainable code. It is creating something that if I read through it and got to understand it, it would take me a couple days to fully understand what the code is versus RTrack, for example. That took me 2 months just to even understand that everything was stored in stored procedures. And this is how those stored procedures interact with each other. So I think what we really need currently is a way to do training, but not in the way that it's currently being offered, such as in the challenge, the AI coding challenge that DC Aggie was mentioning, or the one that Fulisnaba was talking about, where here's how to do vibe coding, take this training session. It's more like, here's how to leverage your existing skills and augment them utilizing AI tools. And remembering that they are tools, fallible tools that could provide incorrect information. They're only as good as the questions you ask it, so you need to do some work on your part as well. You can't just throw something out of it and expect it to give you a pristine answer on first try. I don't know if you saw how long this chat chain is just for this one project, but yeah, this is what I did today. We finished the project. I said, let's create a documentation, set of documentation. And we have documentation, and I'm going to read through it as I integrate it into the actual application that I'm going to use this library in. If it works, amazing. I'll report back to you guys. If not, I'll tell you what I had to fix, and I'll be honest about it. I'm not saying AI is supposed to be used at all. I'm saying that I'm enjoying using it and I'm finding success with it. Okay. I don't know if anything that I said was coherent or in response to anything you said, DC Aggie.
It is. It's made me curious. I would like to maybe have a community day where we start from scratch and someone makes an elevator pitch for a product.
Yes.
And you show us start to finish.
Yes.
How you would use something like Claude to go from 0 to production ready code for some small project. And I mean, that's not perfect because there's a scale question and we'd obviously want to do something that could be completed within a single stream, but it would be interesting to see your process and how you handle the prompts and how you use the output.
Or at least somewhere in that stream.
Right. And like I said, I have found AI to be useful in my most recent feature, right? I've completed a feature in about 5 work days that probably would have been closer to 10 without it. Maybe not quite that much, but certainly longer than 5. And so there are things that I can use it for already. But if we're moving the conversation to the future, what I'd like to talk about is my wish list. So not my predictions.
I want to hear it.
But my wish list, what I want AI for. First, in general, I don't want AI to write stories or even to write code in general.
Oh man, we're going to have an entire community day surrounding generative AI in the creative space. So
what I would like AI to do is stuff that has to be done, but is not actually of value. So for example, I went to VS Live, as we talked about, and I spent hours and hours and hours, days of work doing my travel expense report for going to VS Live. Back and forth, filling stuff out, uploading, correlating receipts to charges on my corporate credit card, responding to the expense report being kicked back to me 7 or 8 times. I would really like if AI could just look at my credit card and at my emails the two places where the answers to all of these questions are, and submit an expense report for me, and preferably approve it and send the check to me for per diem. That would be great, because I see the expense report as something that needs to happen, but the act of filling it out being unimportant, meaning it's not truly creative, it doesn't hurt anyone, there's no risk with it. Worst case scenario, auditing triggers would take care of things. So that is something I would like to use AI for. And don't tell my manager this, but you know what else AI would be really great at?
Huh.
Approving leave requests and following up on sick leave and reviewing things where decisions aren't being made that impact people, things that have to happen. It's important that they happen, but it's not important how they happen, sort of stuff. In general, that's what I think is where I would like, where my life and my work would get better from having AI, is taking care of the stuff that I don't actually care about, and letting me instead do the stuff that I do care about. And that stuff that I do care about is producing custom developed software for business process automation. That's my job, right? So within my job, what I would like to task AI with is saying, okay, here is this web app that we've built. Please find any concerns here with accessibility for screen readers and other things, flag the concerns and suggest improvements, and then task a junior developer with reviewing that report and potentially making the enhancements and changes.
AKA
because that's
creating
something
tasks in Liquid Sky, for example.
Yeah. So those are things I would like. I would also like to be able to do first pass code reviews with AI. So here's our code. Before we send it out to the entire team for code review, what are some immediate obvious things that should maybe be checked?
Oh man. Can I give you
those
some
sorts
wording
of-
so that you can use Claude for that?
Is Claude a paid service?
Yeah. I mean, there is a free version, but I am.
Yes.
paying for
So
this
here's
one.
the situation I'm in professionally, right? Our code and our environments are IP that I don't get to share with other people or
that too.
with services, and they also are. So if you're familiar with HIPAA for medical stuff, in higher education we deal with something called FERPA, which is the same idea. So I would get in trouble, and if I were to install or use tools that I didn't explicitly know were FERPA certified before I give them access to any of our stuff. And also everything has to go through our legal department. So for example, we have a contract to get Copilot to all of our developers, and we are waiting for approval from the legal department before that can even proceed. So they've like allocated the money, but nothing's been signed until that's approved. So if I'm going to experiment with Claude, it would have to be on my personal machine using like
Personal
just
projects.
things I'm playing around with, right?
Yeah.
So if it's free, then I'd be happy to play around with it. If it costs money, then that would be something I'd ask work to pay for, and there are complications there because I work for a public university, so state contracts and all that.
Wait. TBD said that you work at a place where you send people to stuff.
I do. I work at a place where they send people to stuff. And in fact, I have had, on my performance reviews, I've had to have exceptions for not going to stuff. So I used to go to stuff, and then the pandemic happened, and I told them, yeah, I'm not going to stuff. And so they've had to like grant me exceptions to not going to stuff. So VS Live is the first conference I've attended in person since the beginning of the pandemic. All right, so Claude, I'm interested to hear it, but I might not be able to actually use it
in the future. You could experiment through me, whatever. I mean, I am paying for it. I'm also paying for ChatGPT. Gosh, yeah. So I'm an evil person. For those of you that absolutely hate or don't like the idea of an AI evangelist, essentially, that is indicating there are good uses for AI, because it's kind of something I am finding that I'm doing. where I hear a lot of negativity surrounding AI, but I have found it to be a very positive experience, and not in the way of I get to be more lazy, because you guys know me. I have no, like, I'll say that I'm lazy about certain things and be joking about it, but my internals will not let me be any less than 100% integrity driven. I can't. It hurts. It physically hurts. So coming across a system like AI, you guys saw my struggle, my moral dilemmas that arised from it. And the whole reason that I started this conversation was because I was feeling like I'm going to be judged as being incompetent or less than reliable for using AI to accomplish certain programming tasks, where I think it really can be used to enhance the quality of products that every single one of us create. And later in the future, when it does get better, it will allow more people to be involved with software development. Whether that's a good thing or not, I don't know. But it's just going to change the shape of software development, and I would like to help shape it. Because I don't like the way it's going.
If more people involved means my customers are producing their own solutions, that is a bad thing. Because I've seen firsthand, and I've had to support things that customers produce on their own, right? And as we were mentioning, 15 years ago, that was quote unquote programs built in Microsoft Access.
Right.
And now the things being pitched are AI vibe coding. And in between, there were zero code or low code things, right? Like our university experimented with something called ServiceNow that was supposed to be able to produce applications. And it could, and I ended up being tasked with producing applications in ServiceNow. But the reason they initially purchased it was the sales pitch was that our customers could make their own forms and applications. And they can, if it's very simple and you're happy with the out of the box look and features. But as soon as you want things customized, or as soon as you want something that it wasn't intended to do, you're writing a lot of JavaScript and you need to be a developer. And it's a story that we've seen and lived through over and over. And so that is the root of my skepticism. And you can produce stuff with ServiceNow. You can produce stuff with ServiceNow with zero code as a customer. But there's a difference between what you can do and what will be done. And what will be done by my customers is making a mess, becoming unhappy with it, and then dumping that mess in my lap. It just
and that's a thing though. That's like, it's like you're now your AI is forcing a redefinition of your job. The thing is, you still would have a job, and it's like it's again, it's the same situation that humans run into. This is the argument, of course. This is probably a typical argument at that. This is the same situation that we run into anytime we're evolving the way technology works, the way that we use technology in everyday life. We're taking away jobs from other people. We are making it so that you can't do the same thing that you enjoyed doing as a job for X number of years, for your entire life. And so it's a bad thing to introduce this new way of doing it, because the people that are doing it the old way aren't going to be able to do it that way anymore. And I find that to be not the strongest of arguments for resisting new technology. I know that's not what you're getting at, but you did bring it up as a concern.
Yeah, and I think that's maybe the fundamental difference in our perspective, because my view is that the old way is going to continue to be the way, and that this is just the next big distraction, the next big promise of how we don't have to do things the old way. And when it fails, or when people realize that it's only good for 20% of what the sales pitch promised, that it's eventually going to come back to developers doing things the old, proven, good ways. The idea, my takeaway is that there aren't any shortcuts. That the sales pitch of not needing developers or being able to develop in 10% or 1%, or like the email about the vibe coding thing, to getting a product at the end of one day, products that in my organization
That
can
one is
take
just a
a
sales
year
pitch
and a
on me.
half.
I would
Yeah,
never
so
trust that.
so that sales pitch is not going to ever actually materialize. Or by ever, I mean for anyone who works for my university now, by the time they retire, this is not going to be a realistic thing. This promise is not going to be delivered upon. So when people who have bought this promise realize that they aren't getting it, they're going to have to go back to the old way. And that old way might make use of actual reasonable uses of AI, but it's still eventually going to have to come back to, if you want something that is large and complicated, but it's maintainable and scalable, it's going to come down to engineering and doing things the old way.
Experienced engineers at that.
Yeah.
Experienced engineers.
So
but I agree with that.
just like ServiceNow, we still have. And ServiceNow, if you just need a quick form for someone to fill out, it's fine. But I spent 2.5 years migrating everything we built that was quote unquote a custom app in ServiceNow to .NET. And people realize, oh yeah, ServiceNow was promised to make it so that we don't have to do our .NET development, and that promise wasn't realized. And now we've wasted more time in the long run because we tried it in ServiceNow. It didn't give us what we were told it would give us, and then we still had to do it in .NET anyway. It's not going to be exactly the same, but that's the general arc that I see over and over, and I can't help but expect that the AI pitches that are being made to my managers and my customers right now are just the new version of ServiceNow or Microsoft Access, meaning that you don't need custom applications or whatever else. It just, I don't know. Perhaps I'm pessimistic or suffering from the trauma of having lived through that multiple times throughout my career. But I have a hard time not anticipating the same general story playing out here.
So we're out of time for this community day stream because I do need to get back to work. But gosh, I want to continue this conversation for the next, I don't know, 30 hours. We can keep going. But that was one of the main reasons that I want to have these discussions, and I want to have them often, honestly, hopefully without people getting butthurt and being like, well, because you think that way, I am going to now disown you. I don't like that being the result of conversations like this. But the reason that one of the core things that I want to actually get out of this is for real software developers working in the community. TBD saying that he is a 15-year-old vet that doesn't want some 26-year-old. No, I'm kidding. Opposite. He's been doing software development for a while and he doesn't want to be a 50-year vet. He wants to retire before AI eats his lunch. Is there something that we can come up with as a software development community that says, we know AI is here, we know it's being used? Is there a way for one, us to use it in a productive way that is not abusing it? Two, can we shape that? Can we establish regulations of how AI is used in the workplace? And then on a more broad scale, because this has not been done yet, there's so many issues and discussions surrounding it. Can we establish regulations for AI in general? And how AI is trained? Can we provide alternatives for the existing models that were trained on the open internet without anyone's opt-in other than their information happened to be on the internet? Can we say that in order for you to use AI in a professional product, the AI must be able to produce where it got its information from, aka attribution? So I want to establish proper, acceptable ways to use AI as it is now and to shape the direction it's going in, because we are the ones that are going to be affected by it.
I think those are exactly the right questions. And before you can get the answer to those questions, I think you need to have a clear understanding of the motivations behind the push for AI in general and specifically for software development. So the push for individual AI solutions is a push to make money, right? To sell licenses,
exactly.
to sell server time,
Yes.
to sell products. The
Yes.
push that is coming from people like my managers is the push to either require that we do more in less time, or that we do the same things with less workers, or both. And the overall push from people who are funding AI is the desire to reduce or remove the dependency on labor. AI is a substitute for labor in the way that it's being built and pushed and promoted and targeted. I mean, this is going to sound jaded or
You're fine. Please voice
or
your
conspiratorial
openly.
But the base push behind these large products being rolled out and pitched the way they are is that they are to replace labor. We are labor, right? We are labor that produces widgets, and those widgets are, in our case, software. But there are lots of people producing lots of different kinds of widgets, and we are an impediment to maximizing profit and reducing costs. And the reason that AI has lots of money behind it is because it is the potential for us to be unnecessary, or for us to be less valuable, or for less of us to be needed.
And those
I have a hard time having any of these discussions without keeping that in mind.
No, I mean, come on. That is the human experience. That is our ego. And it's part of a larger conversation that I don't want to pull too much into this stream, but you guys already know that I am already in this other domain that I've been exploring even more and more. And the one thing that I would like to keep open and in mind is the whole push for there are so many things that are monetary driven. Right. And the two things that I'm about, money being a primary motivator and recognition, that human need to be known as the person who came up with this thing. I need to be compensated for my efforts. I need to be recognized for my efforts. I take issue with both of those. And I think that a fundamental change needs to happen in society for that.
Right. And I think that's why the question about the ethical training and sourcing of data for AI becomes especially prickly. Because if you subscribe to the view that the purpose of AI is to devalue or replace labor, then it's especially painful that AI is being fueled by the output of actual labor. Oh, so if you've ever worked a job where they have you train your replacement, it feels like that on a global scale.
That's a good analogy. And you're not voluntarily leaving either. They're just hiring someone cheaper.
Yeah, they've hired someone straight out of college that's going to work for nothing, and they want you to train them and get them up to speed on something that you've spent a career building, with the idea that either you are replaceable at that point, or that you lose your ability to be fairly compensated because there's this underlying threat that, well, you've trained your replacement, so you can't demand to be paid what you're worth because we don't actually need you anymore, sort of situation. So yeah, these are the things that are kind of always needing to be understood, right? It's the who benefits that's the root question behind every discussion about anything.
Yeah.
And the people who benefit from AI are the people who want to eliminate the cost that comes from people.
Yeah.
And you can view that personally as thinking you'll be more productive, or that some of the labor that's being replaced is labor that people don't want to do, and that can all be true. But that's a silver lining to a pretty big black cloud that is the displacement of labor. And I'm kind of confident in software development that it's not going to be particularly successful in the long run.
Or at least not
Over,
rapidly.
well, the long run on the scale of like our careers, I do not think it's going to be particularly effective. If we're talking generations, then I can imagine the Star Trek scenario where the idea of someone sitting down at a keyboard and typing C# is silly. But I think that on the scale of my career or the career of the junior devs that we're hiring today, that arc just includes the inevitable realization that AI isn't all it was promised to be, and a bunch of AI written stuff going back to the proven architectural engineering foundations that we use today, and maybe just taking the good parts or the things that have proven useful. Just like, cryptocurrency and blockchain and all that, the stuff that was promised, the big hype, the things that took all the investments, those aren't actually valid or useful. But, the boring parts of it, just the ability to produce basically auditable chains of events, that is useful. And there could be ways that that's used, and that will stick around. But what isn't going to stick around is people buying JPEGs of silly things as investments, right? And that's what produced all the headlines and all the investments and all the excitement. It's based on things that are, technically valid and potentially useful, but not for any of the sexy or exciting or profitable ways that the pitch was for.
And again, I have responses to this. I want to keep it short because I do want to get back to work. As I mentioned before, the more hours I spend doing non-work stuff, the more hours I need to add to the end of my day. But the thing that you brought up is still going along with the baby with the bathwater statement that I made earlier. You did indicate where we are going to come away from this entire experience with something that we could still use, potentially something beneficial that we can use with AI. Maybe we only take 2% of it because only 2% of it was positive. But in my vocabulary, I would call this experience with the way AI was introduced to begin with, as well as the way it's currently being misused and abused, as a catalyst. And that catalyst will be used to transmute our experience as humans in the future and have a net positive effect, in my opinion. So those are my final words on that. Would you like to have any final words? And please don't try to make it snippy or fast or anything. I want to respect your time too and your thoughts.
My final words are just that I'm excited that there are people whose jobs may be made easier by these tools. And my primary concerns are the sales pitch and the promises coming from the people providing the tools and services, and the expectations that will come from the decision makers who are deciding or expecting you to use this stuff, and the fallout that may happen when the difference between what is actually useful and what is promised and expected is realized. And how big that gulf is, I think we're still not sure, but I think it's significant. And so I would like to find the useful parts, right? The things that aren't the gulf, and test where that edge is. But I'm very hesitant to endorse or to
encourage
the the promises that are being made, when I have pretty strong concerns based on those promises. That, I mean, and that's always been a problem, right? Everything that's pitched or sold, the pitch and the sales team over promises, and then the actual product under delivers. And the
Thank you
question is,
so
how
much
big,
for reawakening the trauma from this week. I thought I had gotten past that.
how
Oh,
big
goodness.
is that difference? And I think the pitches and the promises for AI today versus the things that are available to me and the things that I've seen used are so huge, especially the takeaway that my customers will have from these pitches and the takeaway that my managers will have from these pitches are setting us up for failure.
Yeah.
So that's kind of that, and the underlying motivations are my probably core hesitancies and pessimism about this.
Reservations.
Yeah. But I anything that can be useful to me, I'm excited to explore. I'm just worried about adding to the hype of something that I think is dangerously hyped.
I'll write that statement down if I can. All right. Well, thank you so much for that. And as usual, we're going to enter into stand up. So, do you have a stand up you feel like giving?
Stand up meaning you want like updates of what I'm doing at work?
Just whatever you feel is appropriate to discuss in a public setting as far in the format of a stand up regarding software development and stuff you're doing.
Um, well, because it relates to our discussion, the project that I added a feature to most recently is code that I inherited, and a bit of a bummer. I inherited this code quite literally because the developer who created it passed away, and it was a developer from a different team that I had never worked with a very different coding style. And it has taken me a long time to read through his code and figure out what he was doing or how he did things. I really wish he was around to ask questions for. And that's from a like selfish, callous point of view, right? Because the real tragedy is that he died young and in an unfortunate way. But the practical impact of that is that I've inherited code for a project I'd never seen before, written by a developer I'd never worked with before, who had a very different style of developing.
My entire job.
Right. And although his style was very different than mine, it was consistent and it is understandable in a way that I appreciate, even if it is not at all the way that I would have done it. And so that has me thinking very strongly about what is the experience of inheriting someone else's code. And I think we've all inherited code as far as like having a project or a solution dropped on your lap that you're completely new to, and the people who supported it before are no longer available for one reason or another. I think we've also all had people contribute code to our projects that we either didn't care for or took time to understand. And that's one of the challenges of our jobs. And the truth is, most corporate jobs, you're going to be spending most of your time inheriting, maintaining, enhancing
reading
existing
through,
code. And it's
trying to understand.
And that's why we get so excited when we have the opportunity to rewrite or replace something, or when we get assigned to a greenfield project, because then we get to do it our way and from scratch and using all the newest stuff that we know and avoiding all the pitfalls that we've either created ourselves in the past or we've inherited. And that is the stuff that gets me excited and a little nervous that maybe the tools we'll be using on that greenfield stuff will just immediately be producing code that we're essentially inheriting.
Yeah.
Or that is essentially legacy code.
So I like that statement. It wasn't quite a stand-up, but definitely still well worded. I'm sure all of chat, like we've been getting some really good comments about the way that you have been presenting these ideas. So very well said. Thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with us and share your opinions and experiences.
Thanks for subjecting the entire stream to listen to my long-winded opinions.
And of course, you know that if they didn't want to hear it, they wouldn't be here, but they are here. So I'm sure they're not subjected to it. All right. Thank you so much, DC. I was going to call you TBD because I'm about to read TBD's stand up. All right. So I'm going to shift on to reading any other stand up. So if you do have a stand up you feel like sharing, the stand up format is typically what you did up until today, what you plan on doing today, or if you're not doing anything else today, then don't worry about it. And then what you plan on doing in the future with that task or work product. And if you have any blockers, etc. So we just kind of do it for fun on community days to simulate stand-ups. So TBD said stand-up, and this is regarding his stream today, success with developers.stream, which I think we have a blurb for, developers.stream. Linking Twitch account, exclamation point. Also added estimation into Liquid Sky this week. Next week, we'll be looking to sort out deployment and that test and get that testable to people. No blockers. Cool. So again, anyone else that feels like sharing, I will present my stand-up next. So I worked on working with Claude, and this is going to be the phrasing that I'm using when I work with AI to implement a feature or even just research anything. Worked with Claude to worked with Claude to generate a library that allows me to interact with S3 bucket an S3 bucket and be able to do things like add files, delete files. It has versioning turned on so I can see version history. I can delete versions. I have admin features in there for being able to permanently delete files, but for now everything is soft deleted. So that is what I did as far as that. And then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you saw work on RTrack, where we are converting that .NET Framework application to .NET Core using Blazor. It's an MVC application currently, and I plan on doing more RTrack with you guys next week. And later today, immediately after the stream, I'm going to read through the documentation of the feature that Claude came up with, that we worked together on, more Claude than me, and see if it's actually a working library that will be maintainable, because I will be including it in my work product. So that is my stand-up. Anyone else? I want to give you a moment because it was probably hard for you to type while I was blabbering on. TBD is saying to Dukasoft, no logging, your code is perfect. Crush that release. Oh, I'm planning on publishing our works website Monday, says Dukasoft. Blockers, myself. Nonsense. You're amazing. Thank you so much for the stand up and sit down, Dukasoft. You're amazing. Everyone, give it up for Dukasoft. He is the best non-bot bot ever. He also streams on occasion. And when he does stream, it is drone footage that he has recorded himself, edited, put some music to, and shares with us on his stream, where we get to hang out with him, have conversations, and it is a very vibing time. It's a very chill time over on his stream. So check him out, follow him. Very wonderful human being. Non-bot bot. Okay. I am going to go to the ending screen, but if you are still typing, then I want to give you some moments to be able to finish what you're typing in case you do have something to say. While you're doing that, I will say thank you all very, very much for being here. Thank you for engaging in this conversation. I know I didn't read all chat. That usually happens on Fridays when we do have someone on voice. I don't necessarily read the chat out loud, but I do try to read all of the chat that you guys type and then try to respond in chat as well. but we do have, it was on screen, so everyone could see the conversation that was going on. And on YouTube, if you're watching this back in time and you do have comments, please feel free to comment on this video or hop into our Discord. Thank you so much for the bed, Stukasoft. Holy cow. Hop into our Discord and post your conversations there. Same with you here in Twitch. Feel free to continue the conversation in Discord. We'll have more conversations about this on community days. Watch Me Lurk had some insight on a situation that happened with them where they had 2 hours of downtime because someone pushed AI code to the server. And so I want to explore further, and I really, really mean this. I want to establish what is acceptable use for the AI technology we currently have access to. And let's truly think of how we can come up with a plan to potentially implement that kind of a thing. Whether we only adopt it ourselves and we make a pact together that say, when I use AI, I will use it responsibly and do it this way. Kind of like, I don't know what they're called, but the code of ethics type of thing. The thing that I'm talking about, the things that doctors do, their oath. The one oath that says I swear to never do harm, blah, 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 blah. And we as developers, I swear to never use software maliciously and with malintent and blah, 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 blah. Same thing with AI. That falls in the same category. We can agree as a community. Nothing that is going to lock you in and where you have to be accountable. But just, we can go anywhere from that all the way to let's contact some government officials and say, we would like to see this, and I will head that up. I don't like interacting with things that are, the Hippocratic Oath. I would like to do, I don't like doing things that are outside of work other than hang out with my wife and do the things that I enjoy. But this is an important enough topic that I think we, our small community, and eventually a larger community, can drive change on how AI is used in software development or in our community or in just, I want to keep the scope to software development, but I'm sure it'll reverberate louder and have more far-reaching effects. Okay, but that's it for me. We're going to raid out and hang out with Sorcery Story today, although she's probably going to be ending soon because she usually ends her stream about the time that we raid out. So we'll see you over on her channel. I will be back again on next Wednesday with more R-Track work product development. Thank you all so very much for the conversations. You've been amazing. Let's keep the conversation going. Ciao for now. Oh, and if you missed any of the stream and you want to see it back, it's on YouTube. Okay, ciao.